You know, I've kept my mouth shut for so long that sometimes I feel like I don't even have a voice anymore. I'm 22 now, and for literally all 22 years of my life, I've been watching the same nightmare play out over and over again. My mom, the sweetest, kindest, most patient human I've ever known, getting treated like garbage by my dad's family. And I never said a word. I just sat there. I swallowed it. I smiled through it. I tried to pretend it wasn't happening because speaking up felt impossible. I was a kid. I was scared. I didn't want to make things worse, but it ate me alive inside. I've been carrying this around for years, and I can't anymore. I just can't. So I need to get this off my chest. Maybe it's selfish. Maybe it's just me screaming into the void. Or maybe some of you listening have lived through something like this, and you'll understand why I finally snapped. But first, let me ask you this. What would you do if you spent your entire childhood watching someone you love? The person who raised you, protected you, kissed every scrape on your knee, get treated like they were nothing for years, and the person doing it was your own family. Would you speak up? Would you fight for them? Or would you sit there like a coward like I did and let it keep happening? Because I can't forgive myself for staying silent. I think my earliest memory of my dad's family treating my mom badly, I must have been 4, maybe 5 years old. We were at my grandparents' house, my dad's parents. I always hated that house. It smelled like mothballs and fried bacon, and the air always felt thick, like walking into a place where you're not welcome. I remember sitting on the carpet in the living room, playing with my little cars, when I heard my grandma's voice from the kitchen. Sharp, cold, like a knife cutting into the air. Why are you always so slow, huh? No wonder my son looks so tired all the time. You can't even keep the house clean. I froze. I didn't understand everything she said, but I understood her tone. And I understood the shame in my mom's quiet little, "I'm sorry" that followed. I peeked around the doorway, and there was my mom, her shoulders hunched, her hands wringing a dish towel, while my grandma just stood there, arms crossed, like a queen scolding a servant. And my dad? He was leaning against the fridge, sipping a beer. Silent. Like always. He didn't defend her. He never defended her. I was 5 years old, and something in my little brain just clicked. I realized that in this house, my mom was nobody. And that broke something in me, even if I couldn't name it yet. That was just the first of 1,000 little moments. As I got older, the words got harsher. My aunt would make snide comments during dinner like, "Well, I guess some people just don't know how to cook properly. My brother really settled, huh?" Or my grandpa would joke, "Back in my day, a wife knew how to take care of her man. Don't know what happened with you two." And every single time, my mom would do the same thing. She'd force a smile, lower her eyes, and whisper something like, "I'll try harder next time." Do you know how much it kills you, as a kid, to see your hero, your safe place, shrink like that? I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. I wanted to tell them to shut the hell up. But I didn't. I just kept chewing my food and pretending I didn't exist. By the time I was 8 or 9, I started realizing other families weren't like this. I'd go to a friend's house, and their mom and dad would laugh together, touch each other's shoulders in the kitchen, just exist like teammates. There weren't icy silences or sarcastic jabs, or anyone looking over their shoulder in fear. And I'd go home to our family dinners where my mom barely spoke, and my dad's family talked over her like she was a ghost. Sometimes my dad would join in. God, that part still makes me sick. He'd laugh at their jokes. He'd shrug when they blamed her for something she didn't do. And when we got home, he'd act like nothing happened. I learned real quick to just swallow my feelings. Because if I ever cried or said I didn't like going over there, my dad would just snap. "Don't talk about my family like that. Show some respect." Respect. For people who had zero respect for the woman raising his kids. I remember one Thanksgiving, I was maybe 10, that really stuck with me. My mom spent all day cooking. Like all day. She was glowing with excitement because she thought maybe, just maybe, this time they'd appreciate her. We get there, she sets everything out, and I swear to God, my grandma lifts the lid off the mashed potatoes and goes, "Oh, lumpy again." Just like that. Like a punch to the gut. And my mom laughed it off. She actually laughed. I watched her face the whole dinner, and I could see it. That fake smile, the way her eyes glassed over like she was somewhere else. And I just kept thinking, this isn't fair. Why does nobody love her the way I do? I could go on and on about the little digs, the holidays, the constant tension. But the truth is, all of that was just a slow burn. The kindling. It would take another 12 years for me to finally reach my breaking point. The moment where I couldn't stay quiet anymore. And honestly, I don't know if I'm proud of what I did or ashamed it took me so long. By the time I hit my teenage years, the anger was different. When you're a kid, you just feel scared and confused. You don't understand why things are the way they are. You don't have words for the shame or the helplessness. But as a teenager, you start to see it for what it is. And God, I was furious. I remember being 13 and starting to notice how my mom would get extra quiet on Saturday mornings. The days we usually went to my grandparents for lunch. She'd move slower, like every step toward the door was heavier than the last. And she'd check herself in the mirror 5 times before we left, fixing her hair, reapplying lip balm, smoothing her shirt. Like maybe if she looked perfect, they wouldn't tear her down this time. And every single time, it was the same story. We'd walk in, and the air would instantly feel different. My grandma's eyes would flick over my mom like she was scanning for flaws. My aunt would whisper something under her breath, and my dad would just switch. At home, he was a little softer. Maybe not affectionate, but at least he was neutral. At his parents' house, though, he became one of them. Cold, distant, ready to laugh at any joke made at my mom's expense. There's one day burned into my brain. I was maybe 14. We just sat down to eat, and my mom had brought a casserole she spent hours on. My grandma takes one bite, looks around the table, and goes, "Well, I guess it's edible." Everyone chuckled, even my dad, and something in me snapped. I didn't say anything out loud. I wasn't that brave yet, but I slammed my fork down so hard the whole table looked at me. I mumbled something about not being hungry and left the table. I locked myself in the bathroom, and I just shook. Not just from anger, from shame. Shame that I couldn't do anything. Shame that my mom was out there, pretending she was fine. Shame that my dad saw all of this and didn't care enough to stop it. High school made it worse because I started comparing my family to my friends' families. One of my best friends, Jake, his parents were like teammates. They teased each other, helped each other, never made the other look small. I'd have dinner at their place, and Jake's mom would sit down and actually eat while his dad served her a drink or took the trash out without anyone asking. And I'd think, this is what love looks like. This is what respect looks like. Then I'd go home to my parents' dynamic, where my mom jumped up to serve everyone and my dad just watched TV. I started resenting him. Like, really resenting him. I didn't say it, but I felt in my chest, this hot, coiled ball of anger that never went away. By 16, I started avoiding family gatherings whenever I could. I make excuses, homework, projects, needing to hang with friends. Anything to get out of that toxic house. And my mom, she never stopped going. She'd go alone sometimes, and I'd beg her not to. I'd say, Mom, why do you put yourself through that? Just stop going. They don't deserve you. And she'd smile that sad, soft smile and say, they're still your father's family. It's important to keep the peace. Keep the peace. Even if it killed her inside. There was one night, I was 17, that almost pushed me over the edge. My dad's family had come to our house for a barbecue. Our house, our space. My mom worked so hard to make it nice. She decorated, cleaned, cooked. She even wore this new summer dress she'd bought on clearance, just to look extra presentable. And my aunt, God, I could still hear her voice. She leaned over to my mom while they were at the grill and said, cute dress. I had one like that 10 years ago. Guess vintage is coming back, huh? My mom laughed. That fake, careful laugh. And I just froze. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to grab the tongs from the grill and throw them. I wanted to make everyone see how cruel they were. But instead, I went to my room and punched my pillow until my knuckles hurt. Because that's what my teenage years were, swallowing anger and crying in secret. I think that's when I started fantasizing about leaving. Like as soon as I turned 18, I'd get out, never look back, and finally live in a house without this constant poison in the air. But leaving didn't fix the guilt. Because no matter where I went, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd abandoned my mom in that battlefield all alone. I turned 18 thinking freedom would fix everything. I got a job at a local coffee shop, moved into a crappy apartment with a friend, and thought, finally, I can breathe. But you can't really breathe when half your heart is still at home. I call my mom every other night. She'd always say she was fine. You know that tone? That fake fine? I could hear the tiredness in her voice. The quiet. The way she'd pause before answering, like she had to gather herself. I knew she was still going over there. Still letting them chip away at her piece by piece. One night, I went home for dinner. Just a regular Sunday. The second I walked through the door, I felt that old, suffocating tension. My dad's brother and his wife were there. Grandma was at the table. My dad was at the grill. And my mom was standing in the kitchen, being criticized for breathing, basically. I don't even remember what sparked it exactly. I just know I walked in on my aunt saying something like, maybe if you actually learned to cook properly, he wouldn't be so thin. Thin. My dad isn't even thin. He's fine. But it wasn't about food. It was never about food. It was about control. About making her feel small. And my dad, he just stood there flipping burgers. Didn't say a damn thing. Something snapped in me. I don't know if it was 18 years of swallowed anger or the sight of my mom standing there with that tight smile, nodding like she agreed with their cruelty. I slammed my bag on the counter so hard everyone jumped. And I said, voice shaking, heart pounding, are you people serious right now? The room went dead silent. I didn't even recognize my own voice. It was loud, raw, shaking with every year I kept it inside. You've treated my mom like garbage my whole life. Every family dinner, every holiday, I've watched you tear her down while she bends over backwards for this family. And Dad, I turned on him, and my throat felt like it was on fire. You just let it happen. You laugh with him. You act like she deserves it. I can't believe I ever looked up to you. No one moved. My grandma's mouth was hanging open. My aunt muttered something about me being dramatic. And then my dad finally spoke. Not to defend me. Not to defend my mom. He said, watch your tone. You don't talk to my family like that. And that was it. The last little thread, holding my respect for him, snapped. I walked over to my mom and said, you don't have to stay here. Let's go. Right now. She hesitated, looked around like a scared little girl. Then she shook her head. I can't, she whispered. I just can't. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her hand and drag her out of that house, but I realized she wasn't ready. And I couldn't force her to be ready. So I left. I got in my car, drove to some random empty parking lot, and sobbed until I felt sick. Because that was the night I truly understood. I couldn't save her. Not if she didn't want to save herself. That was my breaking point. Not a movie moment where everything changes. Not some heroic rescue. Just the day I stopped pretending my family would ever be normal. Since then, I've cut contact with most of my dad's side. I talk to my mom. I check on her. I beg her to leave sometimes. But I also know you can't drag someone out of a cage if they still think the cage is home. And it hurts. God, it hurts. Some nights, I lie awake wondering if I did enough. Should I have fought harder? Should I have stayed longer? Or was leaving the only way to keep from drowning myself? I don't know. And that's why I'm telling this story here. Because I need to know, what would you do if you watch someone you love get torn down for years and they just took it? Would you keep fighting for them? Or would you walk away like I did, just to survive? Because I'm still trying to figure out if I'm brave or just a coward. It's been almost 2 years since that night. 2 years since I walked out of my dad's house, shaking with rage and heartbreak, swearing I'd never sit through another one of those dinners. And you know what's crazy? I thought leaving would make me feel lighter, stronger, like I finally broke free. But the truth is the weight never really leaves you. I still get texts from my dad sometimes. Little things like, "Your mom's fine, stop worrying." Or, "You should come by. Family misses you." Family. Funny how that word doesn't feel warm anymore. When he says family, I just picture that living room where I spent my childhood, sitting small and quiet on the carpet, watching my mom get picked apart like she was less than human. And my dad standing there doing nothing. You know what really messes with your head? Realizing that as a kid, I thought that was normal. I thought every family had a grandma who could make your mom cry without raising her voice. I thought every family had jokes that weren't really jokes. I thought dads were just silent. It wasn't until I left, until I had my own space, that I realized how twisted it all was. I remember one night, I was sitting on my apartment floor, eating instant noodles because I was broke, and I just cried. Not because I missed them, but because I felt robbed. Robbed of a childhood where I could have just been a kid, without carrying my mom's pain on my shoulders. Robbed of a father who should have protected her. Robbed of that feeling people talk about when they say home. People ask why I don't just cut my dad off completely. I wish I could, but he's still my dad. And part of me is still that little kid who wants him to wake up one day and say, "I'm sorry. I should have protected her. I should have protected you." I know it probably won't happen, but hope is a stubborn thing. As for my mom, she's still there. She swears she's managing. I visit her when I can. Sometimes she sneaks over to my apartment just to have a cup of coffee in peace. We sit by the window, and for an hour, it's like the world is quiet. And then she goes back. Every time she leaves, I feel that old ache in my chest, the one that whispers, "You failed her," even though I know deep down it was never my job to save her. I guess that's why I'm here, telling this story to strangers on the internet. Because I don't know how to carry this anymore. Do I keep trying to pull her out, even if she doesn't want to leave? Do I protect my own peace and let her stay in the life she's chosen? I'm stuck between guilt and survival. And honestly, I don't know what healing is supposed to look like when the people who hurt you are still out there, pretending everything's fine. If you made it this far, I guess I just want to ask, what would you do if you watched the strongest, kindest person you know get broken down for years, and the person who should have protected them was part of it? Would you keep fighting for them, or walk away for good? Because I'm still that kid in the doorway, wanting to scream, "Leave her alone." And also that grown-up in the car, crying alone in a parking lot. Because I know she might never leave.